Welcome to episode 4 of CyberBytes, the podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Cooper, co-founder of Aspiron Search. This week's guest, we have Ray Espinoza. Ray is currently the CISO for Inspectiv, and he's got a great story to tell, going from an incident responder all the way through to becoming a CISO. We talk about scaling security functions, building security teams, and most importantly, one of the keys to his success, having a collaborative leadership style. How you been, mate?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Good. Am I right in saying you're just back from Disney?
I did spend some time with the family down at Disneyland. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing. I was there last July and had an amazing experience, and my daughter absolutely loved it. So that's definitely on the bucket list, or off the bucket list, should I say. So Ray, thanks for coming on. With all my guests, I've been taking it right back to where it all began, where you're from, and how you got into security.
Absolutely. I started my career off doing IT and then moved into what is now called infrastructure operations. But back then I was just called a systems administrator. I worked at a few small offices before ultimately joining eBay when I was 21. And it was an amazing ride of 10 years that included, front-end infrastructure and then overall infrastructure. About 7 years in, having moved from sysadmin to team lead to manager of the infrastructure team that I was leading, I was getting a little bit of Groundhog's Day of just the same thing, just slightly different variables. And it was at that time that eBay hired their first CISO. The existing manager there said, "Hey, why don't you come and build incident response for us? You understand how eBay works. You have the relationships. We'll teach you the security stuff, but you have everything else that we need to drive and get things done. Would you do that for us?" And I was like, you know what? Let me think about it. And then it took like an hour, and I was like, what am I thinking about? This is awesome. I will absolutely do this. And it turned out to be the best decision I made for my career. That led me down, this really awesome path. But it definitely set me up for success there, and another 3 years of building an incident response program from scratch, building a security operations center, hiring a team, and scaling that was a ton of fun and a fantastic experience.
100%. Can you explain, just for those that don't know, what incident response actually is?
Absolutely. So the incident response team that I was leading was twofold. One, we monitored for threats on all of the networks and all of the assets that we owned. And then we were also the ones, when we found those threats, or if a threat was reported, that we would be the ones that would respond. We would investigate the issue. If we found a confirmed issue, we would then spin it up as an incident and drive both remediation as well as investigation to the root cause, and then working through trying to figure out how do we prevent that issue from happening again.
Got it. It's basically putting out fires.
Absolutely. I wore my firefighter's hat and uniform just about every day in that role.
Quality. So after that, what after you'd set up the SOC, where did you then head up after that?
I had a similar type of role, and after 10 years at eBay, I was like, man, could I spread my wings and be successful somewhere else? And would that bring on new challenges and new roles? I felt like my manager, who was fantastic and a great friend and still is, wasn't really going anywhere. And I didn't necessarily feel like I had an opportunity to really grow beyond on the leadership side unless I left the team. And that was just not something that internally that I was willing to do. I happened to run into the overall director of incident response for Cisco Systems incident response team. I was a part of a joint government private sector exercise in Washington, D.C., and had the ability to meet him. We grabbed a couple of beers and we're just talking about things. And he was like, "I'm really trying to build out a team in San Jose. And, I'm in North Carolina. We have a great team, but we really need to scale and up level and expand capabilities. Would that be something you were interested in?" And it just kind of happened that I just happened to be open to opportunities at that time, and it worked out. And so I moved on and helped scale that function. It was a large team of just senior level individuals from around the world, which was a great problem to have. But we were thinking about scale. How do we get fresh blood in here? How do we enable them to grow? And how do we expand our reach overall? So I was able to build out an analyst function, in turn, also build out security operations centers, one in San Jose and one in India, to get to a follow the sun coverage model, as well as continue to expand that team. And it was an interesting ride. I think at one point, just through the ups and downs of the company, I had 19 direct reports. So I spent half of my week just in one-on-ones, which was, an interesting take. But 4 years there, that ultimately was another stepping stone for me to just figure out problems at a much larger scale. eBay at 14,000 employees when I left, Cisco Systems at like 150,000 employees plus contractors. So it brought a different set of challenges. Ultimately, a couple of other stops, one of them at Workday in a similar type of role, and then a startup. All of that led me really to my first CISO level role as VP and of global security at Proofpoint. And that was, an awesome experience to step in, a bit scary as well, a large publicly traded company, where, I quickly figured out it wasn't about just solving security problems. It was about managing the politics that every organization has, to be able to find success, figuring out what the playing field is, what are the rules, and then how do I play without anybody really wanting to explain them. So an interesting ride nonetheless.
100%. I read on your LinkedIn that you enjoy driving security training and security awareness. Where did that start for you? Was that first CISO role at Proofpoint, or was that come a bit further on? Or
I would say that it goes back to my first security role. I routinely came up to folks and found that when I came to them and helped them understand this is the issue and this is why we're investigating, and sometimes this is why it's bad, we got much better buy-in by explaining and helping educate them of what we needed from them and what the issue was. There was a period of time where security was thought as you had to operate in a black box. You don't need to tell people what's going on in security. You just do the security thing. And I always felt like that didn't fit right. If somebody were to come to me and make me do things wildly different, I'd want to understand why. And then that would make it easier for me to accept and come along. And I found that the education materials that we have, it was about an hour or so of computer-based training, and that was supposed to be enough to limit the risk and educate folks and drive change. And guess what? It just didn't, and it hasn't since. And so I decided to take on an experiment several years back, and I thought, if I can really try to drive and think about not just awareness but evangelism, can I build a security culture by better education, different ways of training, better engagement? Will that drive actual change? And it had an amazing result in that, I found that more folks in the organization genuinely cared about security, genuinely cared about reporting things they felt that were off, weird, or different. And because they had a trust in myself and my team, that we would treat them with respect, regardless of whether it turned out to be a real issue or if it was a false positive. Them taking the time and owning, hey, this is weird, I think we should look at it because I care. Arming them with that trust and then treating them that way. I felt like that really started to really open up these doors that I felt were pretty much closed everywhere, with helping folks better understand why security does the things that we do. And the other piece was when we add something new to your endpoint, we're doing endpoint encryption. And so now you're going to have a slower boot time and, leading with the why. What's the risk to this? Because I found that folks didn't innately understand what the risks were. They were there trying to do their job. They were trying to do what was best for, their organization. But when they understood the why and where we were in trying to solve some of these problems, again, I saw much better buy-in. So I was thinking, okay, like this works. We just need folks to lean in. We need to treat them well, and that'll help them continue to better understand. And then I found like other complementary programs. There's many organizations that have a security champions program where they take developers and who are security leaning, and we educate them, we arm them with tools and help them solve problems. That's another piece that goes into that security evangelism type of bucket that helps build a security culture. It's less, the training piece is a byproduct of it, but building that culture where people care and people understand, was huge. And then like the last big piece is a little bit of security theater that we would do. We would take something big in the news. And at the time, like a big bank breach, we would break that down and we would help folks understand, well, what happened and who was behind it and how do these things typically work? And, with enough technical depth for technical folks to get something valuable out of it, we didn't take for granted that any of the terms that we used, are innately understood. And so we try to make it easy for everybody to understand and get away with and walk away with something meaningful. And treat it more like a story. I mean, when you're selling anything to, your leadership team about why you should be promoted, you're helping folks better understand anything. It's all about telling a story to be able to build a connection and helping folks understand. And that's what we really centered around as having that as a pillar of let's be storytellers, let's be honest, let's hold ourselves accountable. But if we can do these things, we can drive change. And I had the ability to do that at a Series A to Series B startup. I went to, a publicly traded company who then ended up being taken private in Medallia and continuing to implement some of those things. And I saw the same types of indicators that we were driving change. So regardless of company size, you can really, those tenets work for everybody, that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because I see so many folks just don't understand. And I don't see it as a them problem. I see it as a me problem, that we need to do a better job communicating. My team needs to do a better job of making this accessible. And let's have a level of accountability we didn't have to before.
Love that. Because I saw you quoted that success comes in a collaborative leadership, which I loved. Can you talk, what does that actually mean to you?
You can't be successful on an island. You really need folks to buy in. I have strengths and I have weaknesses. And when, we surround ourselves and we build relationships with others with complementary strengths, then, oh my goodness, the types of problems that we can solve because we're collectively stronger as a team. And I'm a high school football coach, and, I've been big in sports most of my life. And so that team feeling always came easy and natural for me. And I found that, genuinely caring about folks and helping them succeed and leaning in where I can be strong, gosh, it helps them in the same way that it helps me. So clearly this is the formula that we can use to really, make some magic happen.
Yeah. What about customized security training for your teams? Because I also read about that you create customized training paths for them. Is that right?
It's all about making it accessible and helping, to drive parallels to which folks will understand. And so what we said we would do is let's do targeted training for the finance folks. Let's talk about the risks that finance and accounting folks will typically see. And that's that business email compromise type of emails, or other types of scams that are trying to entice them to either send money or send financial information or send sensitive information specific to them. That had huge value. When we talked to our engineering team, they don't care about, what the finance team is focused on. They want to understand, how can my application be attacked and what should remediation look like? And what are the tools and libraries and frameworks that we can use to make our lives easier, but more secure? And so we found that by having targeted training, talking about threats specific to these different teams, we were able to get them to buy in a little more because it felt more real. It didn't feel like a problem that was affecting somebody else. It's like, holy cow, these are things that I can look out for. These are things that I can do and that I can see that will have a tangible impact on my job. And again, that was a huge piece of making it real and helping folks understand, the why with things that they.
With it constantly evolving, does the training and awareness piece all evolve as well consistently? It's not just like a one-time thing. Is it like consistently? Is it monthly, quarterly, yearly, that sort of thing?
You're absolutely right. Threats do continue to evolve, really much more on the advanced side. Thankfully, there's a lot of threats that we're able to put in specific categories where there may be nuance to how new attacks happen, but categorically, the attack is generally the same. But that still means that we revisit that type of training. Targeted training is anywhere from, every a quarter or two to at least twice a year, just to make sure that we have some level of face time. But we supplement that with monthly brown bags, with quarterly briefings that I talked about, where we're continuing to tell stories. And then we have these ongoing programs with security champions, and we have other events where we're driving evangelism. So it's a collection of all these things where they're constantly hearing security and positive news around that as far as what we're doing. It's not always positive. Sometimes there's an issue, but we still celebrate. Well, we learned and we got better because we experienced these things. And, it goes back to that old adage of smooth seas don't make skilled sailors. Like our security team is better by dealing with issues because we're now able to understand that it's real, we can be affected, and we have to get better at proactively responding and detecting these types of threats. It's the same thing where we constantly bring back, did we learn something new? Great, let's demystify it and let's talk about what we learned about why this was an issue and how we can get better. And so it becomes very routine. And I found that, we don't overpress them with too much information, will become noise, but enough where we add some level of value. There's something that can be taken away. And again, when that individual finds one weird thing, we treat them really well and with respect and with a lot of appreciation for leaning in and doing their part.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Yeah, I see that so how do you keep up to date with the constantly evolving threat landscape? Because I see you do a lot of advisory type stuff. Does that help being close to products or security startups?
That absolutely helps. And it's all context of the different problems that different vendors are trying to solve is definitely one avenue. Again, a lot of the problems they're solving may not necessarily be novel problems, but it may be a novel approach to solving it. Maybe it's more efficient, or it's with new technology, we're able to do things that were very difficult to do in previous years. And so that piece adds context. I myself attend a lot of different briefings. There's a lot of great news that comes out, Krebs on security. That guy seems to always be plugged into whatever the heck is going on in the world. And so you have that and lots of other news sources that are constantly sharing data. It's a combination of all of those things, even the government and national law enforcement put out briefings of threats that they see where they're able to declassify specific pieces of information. All of that is great context. And the last piece I'll say is that I've worked with lots of great people throughout my career, and I think that's afforded me an opportunity to build a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
Many times I'll get information about a specific type of issue just based off of the relationships. Either somebody will reach out and say, we may have saw something related to you here, or do you know somebody here because we saw this and here's what we found. So there's a lot of, trusted knowledge sharing that happens that is hugely valuable. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but I will say probably the most important thing are those relationships of being able to share trusted information and know that it'll only be used to take action and not used to attribute publicly somebody else for sharing that type of information.
Got it. Are you going to be at RSA in April?
Absolutely. I will be there the first half of the week.
Got ya. Cool. Are you going to be talking, or have you put something forward, submitted something?
I won't actually be speaking at RSA proper, but one of my engineers will be there, Megan Jacot. So I definitely encourage anybody who hears this to check out that talk. It's going to be pretty awesome. But I will definitely be around. So I will say, if you see me, definitely say hi. I will be at a few of the events and whatnot. But I love it.
Love that. Just want to plug Race's CyberOrg. What is that, and how can people get involved in that?
I've been always looking for ways to contribute back to others. And so I spend a lot of time mentoring. I do a lot of evangelism, just helping folks understand that cybersecurity is a path for them. And I even do this at the high school level, as well as college, where folks don't even really think about it. So Raices specifically has a similar type of approach, but what they're trying to do is to entice a lot of folks who come from, Hispanic a Latin background, to help them have connections and be exposed to information where they can continue to grow in a cyber field. So I'm honored and privileged to be a part of the board there and contribute tactically to that organization. Similarly, Black Girls in Cyber, I've invested my time to mentor there. I mean, you see a common theme. If I can help others both break into cyber or to just help them really in any way, that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of value. So we contribute there. But RISIS will be at RSA as well as Black Hat DEF CON, the whole Hacker Summer Camp week. So if you're interested, definitely reach out. We would love to chat.
100%. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes for sure. And then I guess just to wrap this up, Ray, what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling to break into the industry at the moment?
Leverage relationships. I mean, there's so many times, that if you reach out to somebody and you're genuine about, hey, I can really use some help, or do you have any advice? Is there something I can use? I get a lot of messages, via LinkedIn. And I mean, and quite honestly, I take the time to answer every single one because I remember being that person early in my career. I had so many people invest their personal time in me to help me succeed. I feel it's only right to give back. And so leverage folks who are where you want to be and reach out. You'll be surprised that there are a lot of folks who will take the time to help somebody else. At least, hey, here's what I've done, or here's some of the training, or here's maybe an avenue. And then maybe you get lucky. Sometimes, somebody will reach out and say, I have this skill set and, I'm looking for a new role. And I happen to know somebody hiring for that type of role. And so it is very much relationship driven as well. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Awesome. Ray, thanks for coming on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.